as a specific domain only for travel websites. And it's third-party accredited, which means if you want to be, whatever your name is, .travel, you have to go to this organization, give them a letter to show that you own that organization, and be approved as a .travel. Which is a good idea, because it means that you definitely own your own business and your own presence online. But it raises a lot of problems. Chiefly with search, they don't rank well in search engines. People have not really gotten used to using them. And even more critically, who owns the rights to Paris.travel? Is it Paris in France or Paris, a little town in Texas in America? Who owns the rights to Lebanon.travel? Lebanon here or Lebanon in one of the southern states of America? Who's going to own the name? So there's lots of issues with .travel. Some destinations have gone over and started using them, including Egypt and China. How that's going to play out will remain to be seen, I think. I'm not a big fan of .travel. Boris, what do you think?
Well, Egypt has the power to promote this kind of domain, right? I would recommend it for any country.
Or particularly for a small company, right? Yeah. So make your name memorable, the actual name of your website. Yes?
.net, the same?
.net, no. So again, it's normally used for sites that have networks of offices represented within one site. Make it memorable and make it relatively easy to use. Think about how it's going to look as a URL. Think about what, when someone does put your name in, what it's going to look like. Will it be easy to enter into a search engine? It's a challenge when we operate with English language customers and we don't use English language names. Big problem where I come from in Africa, because we use combinations of consonants that just aren't used in the English language. So if you do have a local name, people will often misspell it when they're putting it in the search engine or even into the URL bar and not access your site. Now, we're not advising that you don't use that name, but what you need to do is think about what errors they may make and buy those domains as well. So buy the misspelled versions of your names and redirect them to your main website. And that will capture all of that traffic that may flood out through that. Now, I don't know about web designers here in Lebanon. We do have a big problem in a lot of the markets we work in with unscrupulous web designers that basically rip people off, particularly new businesses that want a website, and they will overcharge them for very basic things. One of the biggest things we see is people charging a fortune for domain, for buying the name that you want. Generally, if you buy a domain, you buy a URL, your website name, it shouldn't cost more than $15 to $20. Or less. We've seen people paying hundreds, thousands of dollars because they're told by a web designer that's what they have to pay to buy it. Also check that you actually own it. Another common thing that web designers do will be to register it on your behalf in their own name. So they now own your URL or domain. And when you try and get rid of them as a company, they'll turn around and say, well, I own that domain, so you need to buy it from me. So make sure when they do register your URL that they give you the official paperwork and proof and link into the domain purchasing site that it's in your name, your company name, and you own that domain. Posting of your website that you need to set up, again, for a regular sized business website, shouldn't cost more than $100 to $150 a year. Something else we see people charge thousands of dollars for. If you're running a dynamic site, which we definitely recommend, I'm going to show you the difference between a static and a different a static and a dynamic website, you're going to need a bit more hosting ability because you're going to be running a CMS or a content management system for your website. So that's going to need some more hosting ability. Be very careful, as I said, when you're coming up with those names and those URLs. Get someone to check how things sound in English and also look at it as a URL. A lot of people make that mistake of seeing the English words but not putting them together into a website address. Like this company that helps people find therapists if they need some psychotherapy or something, and they call their website Therapist Finder. When they made their website therapistfinder.com, as you can see, the way that reads is the Rapist Finder. Not the most encouraging name if you've got female clients. Send them to the Rapist Finder. And there's lots and lots of examples of that. This unfortunate place called Penn Island, that if you look at their name, says something else altogether. I won't go into that. Then, of course, you're going to want to run mail accounts from your website. So make sure you set up email accounts using your domain. It's amazing how many small businesses do this. They'll set up a small website, but they will fail to actually have their addresses as their name at the website.com. And it amazes me in all the emerging markets we work in how many people, right up to tourism ministers, still use Yahoo and Gmail addresses. Because they've been using them for years. Sorry if you have a friend from Yahoo. There's nothing wrong with Yahoo addresses. but it does somehow damage your credibility if you're the Minister of Tourism for the country at yahoo.com. And then particularly more if you're a business person, having a Yahoo address or a Gmail address will often create suspicion that people think, wow, does this guy really even have an office? This is some briefcase operator if they're operating on a free email address. So do have your website addresses linked to your domain. And create appropriate addresses for all departments in your company and staff, and a general info address as well. And target your contacts via a form. Another problem people make when they have a lot of staff in departments is having all of their inquiries sent to a single info mail address on their website. The problem with that is whoever handles that box has this ton of mail that they have to filter through to actually distribute it. So have a section on your site where they fill in that form to contact you. They can select what they want to talk about or what they're inquiring about, and they select that from an expanded box, and that sends that mail direct to that person who's going to handle it. It's going to speed up the productivity. Another mistake a lot of people make when it comes to email addresses on their website, if you're giving email addresses out from your website, you've actually got them on there, contact me at info@whatever.com or whoever.com, don't do that on your website. Have to contact me, click here. And then when they click on it, it opens up an email, it opens up the form. The reason for that is that there are things out there called spiders that are sent out to collect email addresses for spam lists. And they will go through websites looking for that symbol, and every address it finds will be loaded onto a spam list. So it's just going to up your amount of spam if you have that. So have the click here option to do it. So when you're planning your website, your first steps, think about your market and audience. Think about how the site relates to your business. We've given this advice several times, as I said yesterday, that you're not going to plunge immediately in and become an online e-commerce, e-business tomorrow. That's the wrong approach to take. You're going to do this strategically. As Michael said this morning, starting off with about 15 to 20% investment and building things up. So think about your website in that sense. What's the first and critical thing that you want to get online? What messages do you want to have out there at first through your website? And then build on it and allow that room for growth as you plan. Think about the fact that you're going to be increasing the website in size as you go. How will it work in conjunction with your business, and what do you actually want the website to do for you as you build? So find a reputable designer or developer, check out their portfolio and ask to see all the other websites they've developed. Look at them, go at them, try and use them, go through them, and make sure they work. Check with the people that own them if they're happy with the way the website was developed and if it's going to work for them. Make sure you're not being charged highly for those basics that I talked about, and agree in advance what the site can and can't do for you to avoid having to fight with the person later when it turns out not to do what you thought it would do. I always talk about people's ends. You hear this term a lot, the front end and the back end. You really should have a front end guy, the person that's going to help you out with laying out your content and doing your graphic design and making the site look good, and your back end guy that's going to do the programming and actually make the site work technically. These are often not the same guy. A lot of people sell themselves as a one-stop web shop, but from my experience, it's pretty rare to find someone that can do all of these things. So you often should be dealing with two different departments or two different people when it comes to that. I said before about avoiding static websites. This means the old school front page or Dreamweaver table websites. They're really only used for very basic small websites that can't handle growth in size or structure. They give you no management or access control. They're no use in a Web 2.0 world. So you really need to look at a dynamic website that you can manage yourself.
Excuse me?
Yes.
What do you recommend, or which language now is the new technology?
To create your website? We'll probably do that when we do the Q&As at the end, because there's a lot out there that we can talk about. But I do recommend for people who are starting out and want to try at first experimenting with websites to just use WordPress or Blogger and start off with a blog format.
I don't mean personally, if you want to use somebody.
Well, as I said, start out with WordPress. If you're starting with fresh.
Need to learn the name of the language to create
Like
PHP.net.
Yeah. There's many. But anyway, I can give you some recommendations. I actually have a list of them as well. Sorry, no, that's right. I'm talking about why dynamic websites are so important. The risk of not having a content management system. These are just some examples. Say you're advertising a 5-star holiday on your website for $200 a night, and the person doing your website puts up it's $20 a night. And suddenly you need to correct that, and you've got people inquiring about this incredible bargain you have on your site, but you can't make that change because your developer's off duty or not around, or you can't get them, and you end up in a panic to do that, or he's gone on holidays. You suddenly find you're employing this enormous army of technical staff just to manage and maintain your website. You've got some new products that are going to take 3 months for that person to develop a new page and get them up there. or even better, you fire your technical staff or get rid of them, and they go off and relink your site or repoint it to a competitor's website. So you do